going to be focusing on the front valve cover. The rear valve cover back here is not leaking, so we're going to leave it alone. Hard to see, but it is leaking under here. We're getting on the manifold. Now that those 6 bolts are loose, there are, on this model, there's a couple more over here that are on a bracket that holds the cover. Right here, there's another 2 more 12 millimeters, then there's another one. I'm looking at all these as I take them out, and they are all the same. On occasion you run into some longer ones depending on the car. So now this should lift up, and there's only three studs that are here. See if I can lift the camera up to show you. 2 here, 1 over there, and you want to protect those. When we lift this out of the way, we're going to slide something underneath that. Now I'm going to lift the throttle body here, intake out of the way, and it's going to save me from having to take it off. So I've got a perfect size piece of cardboard. It's going to slide underneath there. So let's do that. And I should be able to see I have complete access to the rest of the bolts. There are 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are not on super tight, so don't torque them like you would the ones on the intake. is shorter, the back. And I'm going to separate the back row because this had the short one. Oh, here we go, popped. I went here and over here with the screwdriver and gently tapped it with a hammer. So I was able to break it loose. The other spot that I came in was right in between this electrical plug here, and there's a spot where the head and the valve cover meet. So I'm not saying this is super recommended way. You have to be careful because the head is aluminum and you have to be gentle that you don't dent this. But the problem is this has been on the car for 20 years or more, probably original, and there's not a whole lot of options. When it's on there, you got to pop it loose somehow. So notice I did use a pretty wide tip screwdriver. So if you're going to do it this way, you know, don't be using some tiny little screwdriver. The little pry bars, sometimes they work, but it wasn't strong enough to get it to break loose. So I went with the large screwdriver and a gentle tap there and there, and it lifted up. Note which way these things go in. Okay, so they were this skinny lip down like that when you replace them. Now I need to clean the gasket off, and that's a fair amount of work, so I'm going to pause the video. So as it turns out, this was one of the worst stuck gaskets I've ever seen, and I tried every tool and every scraping, digging device I could, and I just couldn't get it out the way it should come out. So I found that if you use a blowtorch, handheld blowtorch map gas, which comes in the yellow can, readily available at Home Depot, it burns a little hotter than propane. And if you're careful and you take your time going around the perimeter, it will loosen up that gasket, and then you can grab it with the pliers, and it just comes right out. It makes it so much easier. Be very careful because it does heat the valve cover up, and don't burn yourself. And so for me, that was the only thing that worked. Obviously, if you're not comfortable doing that, find someone who is, or get someone to help you that is comfortable working with that. But that's what did the job for me, and it was it heats it up to the point where it just pulls out and it comes out in one piece. You might have to do it in sections, which is what I did, just working at 6 inches at a time. But it was really the thing that made the difference in this job. And then of course cleaning off the top of the head, that's a whole nother project. And this is why they tell you to do the gaskets at regular intervals. It's a lot easier than waiting 200,000 miles. Not quite 200,000. Well, actually, yeah, this is probably original, so it was more than 200,000, but I'm not going to show the whole cleaning of the head process. Bottom line on that is you do have to scrape it off. There's no other way.
You have to be very careful. There's different techniques, I'm sure, on YouTube on how to clean a head. And basically, you don't want to dig into the surface with anything metal. And you want to clean that sucker flush and make sure there is not any residue of the gasket left. Because if there is, it can create a leak. And there's all different techniques out there, from plastic scrapers to metal ones. And I'll leave that part up to you. Just you need to make sure that that head is level and clean, and that you haven't gouged it, or it was leaking so bad for me that anything was an improvement. And it hasn't leaked since I did the job, so I'm pretty happy with it, and it's been almost a year. So anyway, let's get back to the rest of the video.
So the gasket's all cleaned off. I like to kind of take my finger and rub around where the gasket is to see if I can feel any residue, and it feels pretty good. Because you want that surface clean so that the gaskets get a good seal. This is also a good time to see if you dropped any dirt from the gasket in here. I'm going to try to get rid of that. I like microfiber a lot because it sticks to stuff. It's pretty clean. Alright, so we're ready for the new gasket. Becca Arnley, here's the part number, 0361789. I've used this company before and had good luck with them. I am aware that it is better to use the Honda or the Acura OEM gaskets. It's just this was sort of a quick repair and I couldn't get the Honda one, and this was the window of time I had to do this. So this is also not a car that is a daily car. It's more of a backup car, and it's already got, you know, a couple 100,000 miles on it. And honestly, I'll be happy if, you know, the gasket lasts a couple years. There are people that really believe the OEM gaskets are better, and I would agree that they probably are. If I was doing like timing, you know, or main seals and stuff that are really hard to get to under the engine, I would try to use all Honda parts. But like I said, I've used this company before and I've had good luck with them, so just to save a little money this time and save time, I got these. And worst case scenario, if it leaks in a year or two, it's really not a terrible job to get to again. And this time it'll be a lot easier to get the gasket out because it won't be 20 years old. All right, so let's pop this guy in. So on this vehicle, the gaskets do appear to be the same. See the tab there is in the same spot. So I'm pretty happy with that fit. By the way, that was a Rock Auto. I got these parts at rockauto.com. People do complain about Rock Auto, and all I can tell you is I have had nothing but good results with Rock Auto. I used a lot of the different parts. You know, of course, if you can get OEM and you can afford OEM, why not? But sometimes cost is an issue and availability is an issue. I try to take that into account. Okay, so these plug seals, we'll go in with this end in first. All right, so everything's in, everything's clean, and we're ready to bolt this guy back down. And you can see my spark plug seals are good, and all the bolt holes are lining up, so I'm ready to put this guy back together.
So something that came up when I was examining the old parts versus the new parts I received is I did not receive a new bolt. I received the black rubber grommet and the little fitted metal washer. But the problem is on the Acura bolt that came out of the car, there's this little flange. See that little raised area by the threads? Well, you cannot pass the grommet over that or the metal washer. And so this is just an issue sometimes with when you use aftermarket stuff. Sometimes you have to improvise. And so at this point, you have two options. You can reuse the current bolt and the grommet if the grommet is in good condition and it wasn't leaking. Probably not the end of the world because this goes on the outside of the engine. But I wanted, because of the age of my car, I wanted to replace the black grommet seal. So the workaround is you cut off the old one with like a tin snips, and because it's too rock hard and rigid to pass over that little flange. But then the new ones will pass over that with not too much difficulty, and then you're just reusing that metal washer, fitted washer there. So that's what I did. I just replaced the black grommets, and I haven't had any problems, and it just happens to be the workaround that you need.
Now for the bottom row. So I like to go hand tight, or a little more than hand tight first, all the way around, and then go back and torque them down. That's a little more than hand tight. Good. Now I'll just go and kind of very good tighten.
So we're nearing the end of this job, but I did want to mention that several months after this, I did end up replacing the rear valve cover as well. I thought it wasn't leaking, and it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the front, but with some inspection mirrors and just under the car doing oil changes, I did notice a leak in the back, so figured it was time to do that. It is exactly the same process as the front. It is just more difficult because it is in the back of the car, but you can still use the cardboard under the manifold trick so that you don't have to take off that whole intake, and really it is exactly the same as everything else. I'm pretty happy with the result. I haven't had any leaks, and it's been now about 9 months roughly since this whole job was done, and both sides are fine. So even though with a little hitch with the grommets and everything, I could still recommend the parts I used if you can't use OEM. All right, thanks guys. See you next time. Post any questions and speak to you in comments. Bye.